one.
Hey everyone, welcome to Data Engineers Launch number 78. Today's talk is going to be about visualizing Cassandra and Superset, also with Presto as well. Today's talk is going to be given by Ryan Quay, who's an engineer here at Anant. Coordinators for this event are Rahul and myself. If you are interested in giving a talk here at Data Engineers Launch or our sister launch, Cassandra Launch, feel free to reach out to me. My email is listed below, as well as if you're interested in sponsoring either of the two events. We are a part of Data Community DC. Data Community DC believes in building inclusive environments, so no matter your race, gender, sexual orientation, everyone is welcome, and we expect the respect to be given to all. Data Community DC is built of a bunch of different organizations. Data Engineers Launch falls under Data Wranglers DC. So if you're interested in all the various events and organizations, you can check out more at datacommunitydc.org. So what do we cover here at Data Engineers Launch? We cover everything from the ingress to egress of data and everything in between, whether that be visualizing data, prepping data to be visualized with tools like Superset, as well as any analytics or processing that needs to be on your data before it gets there, everything from the ingress to egress. If anyone's new here in the YouTube chat, say hi, hello. What do you do with data engineering? What do you hope to get out of Data Engineers Launch? Group rules, if you have a question, feel free to ask it. We'll be monitoring the YouTube chat, so we'll be shuffling questions to Ryan as they come in. But obviously, please be polite and courteous to others, and please do share what you know with us. Here at Anant, we design and build and manage global real-time data analytics platforms surrounding Cassandra, Spark, and Kafka. So data engineering is a way of life for us here. We also help GW University helps provide venue space when we have in-person events. We also have some organizational and institutional sponsors. If anyone is looking for jobs, meetups, or conferences that they would like to attend, feel free to drop links in the YouTube chat. If anyone is offering any jobs, feel free to drop links as well. Anant is hiring full-time, part-time positions, data platform operators, engineers, or architects. You can find out more at careers.anant.us. Upcoming events, Data Engineers Lunch occur every Monday at noon Eastern, but again, next week is a holiday, so we will be closed, so there will not be a Data Engineers Lunch next Monday, but we will be back for Cassandra Lunch next week as well. You can find out more about our events at anant.us/events. So we've also released our 9th free Apache Cassandra runbook. This one covers getting started with Cassandra troubleshooting, some tips, tricks, command line know-hows that you can use, as well as troubleshooting and restarting Cassandra service. If you ever see your nodes go down with node tool status, how do you resolve that? And with that, we'll go ahead and hand it over to our speaker for today, Ryan.
Hi, everybody. Yes, as Anant, as Arpan mentioned, I'm a engineer with Anant, so I've been here about 2 years now, and just wanted to share something I'm working on. I wouldn't put myself forward as a superset expert or anything like that, but just wanted to share something that I've been learning. So let me go ahead and I'll share my screen. Okay, so today I want to talk about Superset. And how to integrate it with Cassandra by means of Presto. So what is Superset? Well, here they said here at their homepage, it's a modern data exploration and visualization platform. And so it will help you. It creates it helps you to create a dashboard and serve it, and it does so in a way that's scalable, and easy to deploy. So if you've ever tried to build visualization using some sort of custom JavaScript or Python library, it can be difficult, but Superset kind of makes things easier. Plus, and this is kind of a big thing, especially for us as we're on the data engineering side, is it's scalability. So it's somewhere down here it talks about, let's take a look here. Okay. The way it's scalable is through its infrastructure. And so it's got web servers, and this is something that you can have more than one, obviously, and that's how you make it scalable. Metadatabase engine, message queue for long-running queries, results backend, and a caching layer. I found this diagram here from this blog post to be kind of helpful. So you can have multiple web servers, and for example, a G Unicorn web server, and this is kind of what would be front-facing, right? So if you open up your browser and you type in, the URL, it's going to go to these web servers. And those will contact the metadata database. It will also contact your underlying data stores by means of a cache. So that's kind of how the overall infrastructure of Superstore works. So I said Superstore, Superset. Okay, that's how Superset works. So now the question is, okay, so for us at Anant, we use Cassandra quite a bit. Superset is made to work and integrate with SQL compatible databases, and Cassandra is not that. It has CQL, which is similar in syntax, but it's not the same thing. If you worked with Cassandra before, one big thing is it doesn't do joins, and the syntax is just a little bit different overall. So what do you do? I guess that's the use case. What do you do if you want to visualize your data with Superset, but you've got a Cassandra database? How do you do that? And there's multiple ways to do this. One way, though, that was recommended by the Superset team, one of their senior developer relations engineers, he said one way you could do that is with Presto and Trino. So that's gonna the option I wanted to explore here. So I have a example repo here. I can you can find it in GitHub, and as well as a blog post. But so that's kind of the idea is, okay, so you what can you do? You can add Trino, or sorry, you can add Trino or Presto. And what is Trino? It's kind of like the same thing as Presto. I guess they forked off each other at a certain point. But the idea is Presto puts a layer on top of Apache Cassandra and lets you query it using an SQL syntax. Okay, so it is quite a bit of infrastructure. If your only use case is to use Superset, maybe you want to rethink it, but this is an option that if you already have Presto, or if you really need to use Superset directly on Cassandra, this is one way to do it. There are alternatives, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, so this is just one way to get this going. So Presto, what's Presto? Just a quick introduction. Again, I think there have been other data engineering lunches on Presto, but the idea is it's here's the Presto website. It's a distributed SQL query engine designed to query large data sets distributed over one or more heterogeneous data sources. So the idea is we can put Presto here in the middle, and then in the end, we put Superset. So here's Superset on the right. In the middle, you have Presto, and that is kind of the layer on top of Cassandra to allow you to execute SQL queries from Superset directly into Cassandra. And that will allow you to visualize it. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of what we're doing here. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any questions or thoughts before we dive in? If not, we'll just keep going forward. Okay. So yeah, so I deployed it using Docker. Again, I've got a sample repository here, and what you can do is this is not the right repo. Sorry, hold on. Example, here it is. Okay. Okay, here it is. So what you can do is you can see there's a DockerCompose, and we've got two services here. We have Cassandra using the new brand new Cassandra 4 and Presto. And so this will spin up your services. I already got it up and running. So again, you just do DockerCompose up, and you can see I've already added the Superset ones as well. You can ignore those, but basically, well, the idea being we're left with the Presto and a Cassandra instance. Okay, so basically, for using our chart here, we have this. We have a Cassandra node. Again, normally you wouldn't have just a single node; you'd have a whole cluster. But just for the sake of a proof of concept, and then we have a Presto node. Again, we only have one. We don't have the whole thing going, but that's the idea. And how this will work is, so we have Cassandra, and I can access Cassandra just like normal. If you're familiar with Cassandra, you have a SQL shell, and this is how you execute CQL statements. So I ingested a couple sample data sets, and yeah, so for example, you can just use your SQL command. You can query what you got here. So here it is in SQL. What you then do is you open it up in Presto. Okay, so I've got my Presto dashboard. I can close this now. Okay, so here's the Presto dashboard. When you launch Presto, it comes with a dashboard like this, and it tells you how many workers you have. It gives you some other metadata information. Down below, you see there's some query details. So I can see I just queried. I just ran this a second ago. Yeah, that's the gist of it. But what you first need to do is to tell Presto what key space and what table in Cassandra you want to connect it to. So kind of how it works is, I just wrote it here for reference. In a Presto catalog, well, you want to put the catalog, say your Cassandra cluster. Okay, and then schema maps to a Cassandra key space, and then a Presto table is a Cassandra table. So that's pretty straightforward. And that's the idea. And then what you can do, so now we have Presto connected to Cassandra. We're able to access our data in Cassandra, and we're also able to access it in Presto. And I'll just quit it. And what we can do, because we're using Docker, is we're just using Docker execute on the Presto container, and we're running Presto CLI. Okay, and now you kind of look similar to an SQL console, and you can just do select. So now you notice select star, you should be familiar with this syntax already. And then we have our catalog, Cassandra catalog. Okay, and I had to create this manually. You can find, I think you can find your catalogs here somewhere. No, maybe not in the GUI, but yeah. So you can find your you can search for it, I'm sure. But yeah, you set it up, and you run here's the catalog, and then my key space demo. That's the same as, yep. Well, okay. I made 2 key spaces here, so let's just do this. Sensor data temperatures by network, limit 10. Okay, apparently that didn't work. Okay, well, let's go back to the one that worked. Okay, well, this one worked. Yeah, so the idea is catalog, schema, table. Okay, so now we've got it hooked up. Cassandra is hooked up to Presto, and now we have this layer on top. We have this abstraction over our Cassandra database, so we can now execute SQL against the Cassandra database. So the next step is to connect Superset. And Superset, I had trouble finding any DockerCompose ways of deploying Superset. When I looked it up, the way they recommend is you actually clone the Superset repo. So that's what I did. You clone it. You find they have their own DockerCompose files, and you run it from there. So you run it. You can see what they have here. You'll get a Redis instance, a Postgres database. They're using Postgres 10. Superset. This is the app. And you have an initializer container, worker, and yep, that's what you have. So again, I ran this already. And you can see the logs here if you like looking at logs. And so it's up and running. The next step is, okay, so here's Superset. Here's my Superset dashboard. I had to sign it. You're greeted with a login view. You put in your credentials, and then you get something that looks like this. One nice thing is it comes with a whole bunch of data sets for free. So if you look I didn't do any of this. FCC, I don't know what FCC is, but the idea is you can explore. They give you some things to get started with, right? It's got a lot of sample data sets of all kinds of different charts. So here's an example of a DEC-GL demo. I already put in my Mapbox API token. So it can show you maps, it can show you, yeah, line charts. Here's a COVID vaccine dashboard. You can find out who's vaccinated, I guess. So that's the idea. There's a lot of sample data sets that you can explore and click around, but we don't want to do that. What we want to do is connect to Cassandra. So these are the two dashboards that I made. What you do is first start, and so I already made it, but how you got there, that's kind of the key. First, you start by adding a database. So you connect database, and you'll notice that there's the 4 options: Postgres, Presto, MySQL, SQLite. So we wanted to do Presto, and you can do basic. You put in the SQL Alchemy URI, and you test the connection. Alchemy, nope. Okay. I use something like this. Okay, so this is what I used. Put it in here. Test connection, and it works. Okay. So I already have one, but yeah, again, if you're starting from scratch, this is what you do. First, you're connecting to the database, and it's not connecting to Cassandra. You're connecting to Presto, which is standing in the middle. Then what you do, now you're connected to the database, but now you need to configure your particular data sets. So you'd go to data sets, and you add a data set. So these are the examples that they kind of pre-initialized for you. Here's Presto, the data store that I added before. It tells you all the different schemas. So it's actually quite full here. You can even the Cassandra key spaces that I didn't add a catalog for in Presto seem to be showing up, which I was kind of surprised about. But yeah, again, you can add your sensor data, see the table, and then here's your table. So this is my Cassandra key space. These are my Cassandra tables for that key space. And then you just hit add, and oh, it already exists, but yeah, okay, so it means I can just move forward. So I've connected the data store, Presto. I've added a data set, and then now I can make a chart. So again, there's all kinds of charts. I can also filter by data, whatever I want to do here. I favored them already just to make it easy. Okay, so you can make different charts. So for example, we're looking at that sensor one. I can make a pie chart. So we don't want to get into the too much nitty gritty, but you add dimensions, you add metrics, you add your time thing, and you can add time range filters and so on and so forth. Then you take those charts, you put them together, and you put them together in a dashboard. So again, I did this ahead of time. Oh, certified, that's not what I wanted. Favorite, there we go. So for example, for this data set, average temperature by location or change in temperature over time. This one is this data set. The idea is there's these different. Oh well, we can look at it. We have these. Cassandra's easier in this case. Okay, we've got these networks of sensors. Okay, the south network has 3 sensors, and the north network has 2. And we can visualize that. Okay, so here's our southern network, and it's got our 3 sensors, and we can see what street it's on because our data has latitude and longitude. So we can see where our sensors are and map it right to the map. It was really easy. Just put in my Mapbox API token. I think we can look at this chart. Let's see. Okay, put in the map token, latitude and longitude. Just say latitude is they want you to know like what column is the longitude and what does latitude for us. We call it longitude and latitude, pretty straightforward. And just hit update, and there it went, and it showed me where it is on the map. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to get it going. And yep, so there's our 3 southern sensors and our 2 northern sensors. And again, it's finding it by that latitude and longitude coordinate, which is just super fast, super easy. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it, how you put it all together. Yeah, I guess overall, my experience was it was pretty straightforward to get going, but again, thinking about it, unless you have a very particular use case where you'd want to use Superset with Cassandra, there seems like there'd be a better way of going about it. It's quite a bit of infrastructure to keep and maintain. Just, adding an entire Presto layer with all of the infrastructure involved with Presto. Again, there's workers, a coordinator, and so on and so forth. There's other pieces too for flying around. Just in order to connect to Superset, it seems like it's a little bit over the top. But if that's what you need to do, this is one way you can do it. And apparently this is kind of the recommended way. Other options exist. Again, Arpan presented before on open source BI tools, and there's other, Redash, for example, is another way to do it. Or again, if you're not already sold to Cassandra, maybe there's another way you can go about it too. Okay, question from YouTube. How is this different from other tools like, Redash or Metabase? Yeah, so I guess Arpan, can I pass that one off to you? I actually haven't had a chance to test with Metabase or Redash. I'm not as familiar with those tools. I only just looked briefly, but
Yeah, sure. I think in terms of like the specific visualizations you've shown, for the most part, I still had to use Presto to talk to Metabase, I believe. One of the two has native Cassandra integration, but I still had to have a layer of Presto to be able to do that, to do the SQL on them. So one thing I do note is that some of the visualizations that are available in Superset were really, really, really cool. And so I think there's more availability, at least in terms of visualization of like, what's the word? Geographical data. That could be really interesting. So maybe depending on what kind of data you're working with, there might be a use case for using like Redash or Metabase over Superset. But I think in terms of being able to talk to things, at least I still had to use Presto as a layer. You could potentially use Spark SQL with one of them. I forget which exactly one it is. But yeah, as Rahul mentions in the YouTube chat, Presto can talk to a bunch of different databases, right? So how you mentioned how you set up your catalog, right? And so like one of the concepts of Presto is you can do like catalog per joins, right? So you can join across multiple different catalogs. So if you have different databases defined in different catalogs, there is that possibility of being able to use Presto as a SQL query engine to do SQL analytics across all of your databases, essentially. There is another question from the YouTube chat. I personally don't have too much experience with it, but do you have any experience with Power BI and how that could compare as well?
I don't know. It's good questions though. Yeah, that's I'd be interested to know more though, if anyone else has any input for Power BI. Just to add what Arpan said real quick though, I just reading the blog post, I noticed that Metabase does not have Cassandra support, whereas Redash looks like it does have. Where'd it go? Here, Cassandra Redash does have Cassandra support. But yeah, so if you already have Presto, or if you want to do, for example, one thing that you can do, because you have the SQL layer in Superset, is you can do a join. So I made a data set based off of a join, right? And what you can do is, how to do it? Yeah, so you can write your SQL again, and if you're familiar with Cassandra, you don't do joins in Cassandra, and maybe there's better ways to do joins, or but just if this is your use case and it fits well with what you're trying to do, this is something you could do. Like Arpan brought up, you can query across different data sources, and you can bring them together. So here's an example where you could do a join to kind of create a custom data set inside of Superset. And that's possible because of the Presto abstraction in the middle. So, yeah, and again, just one more point. What Arpan brought up. Well, even with Metabase, you needed a Presto in the middle. One thing though to note, just I mean, for if you're not already set on Cassandra itself, let's see, does it say? Yeah, there's like other databases are possible. For example, you could use Yugabyte. Okay, Yugabyte is supported in Superset because it has that Postgres query compatibility built into it. So just throwing that out there as another option if you're not already sold on Cassandra. But yeah, so it's just I can't speak. Unfortunately, I don't have enough experience to speak on Metadash or sorry, Redash or Metabase or Power BI. But yeah, if anyone else does, feel free to jump in. Good questions.
Yeah, it looks like they also have functionality with Dremio. So if you guys missed it on some of our previous data engineers lunches, we had Alex from Dremio come give talks. So if you're interested in that, you can find those on the data engineers lunch playlist as well. But it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So we'll thank you, Ryan, for joining us here. Oh, okay. So there is one last question. How do you like Superset in general as a UI?
I liked it. I mean, again, for like a data engineering tool, I found it to be pretty easy, pretty straightforward to use. Getting it up and running was not a big hassle. So I found it to be pretty intuitive once you kind of click around and get used to the different concepts. You know, you have your data store, you have your data set, your chart, your dashboard. From there, it kind of you can go to town. And just I guess one point of comparison, like I found Superset. I first heard about it because the maker of Airflow is also the maker of Superset. And that's kind of how I heard about it in the first place. That's kind of why I was interested. So maybe your use case might be, oh, I want to visualize my Cassandra data. My use case was, oh, I heard about Superset because the maker of Airflow made it. I want to figure out how to connect it. So that was kind of for me. But I did notice, like I felt like the UI is a step better than Airflow, and it looks nicer, which makes sense. You know, Airflow is not made to be pretty. But yeah, so overall, I found it was pretty straightforward. One thing, like again, as a data engineer, maybe if you're a data analyst or you knew more, some of these terms, there's like the easy level, right, in Superset, and then there's more advanced things. And as you kind of get into, you know, filters, or I mean, of course, that's pretty straightforward. But there's advanced. There is more customization that you can do as well. That was, you know, linear color scheme. It's like, what's going on here exactly? You know, like it might get a little bit confusing, but there's documentation. The documentation is pretty good. And yeah, one other thing that I did that would be potentially a concern that maybe would make you at least something to consider before adopting Superset would be how easy is it to make a custom visualization? And that's something I'm not sure about. I did look up, for example, D3 integration, and that one, it said it didn't seem like that thread, that GitHub issue was going anywhere, as well as Vega. These are just two JavaScript visualization libraries, and it seems like there's not integration with it totally. I did find there's some ways of making custom visualizations in Superset, but yeah, that's like, so here's the Vega Lite chart. It says, oh, is there a way to do it? And then they get the stale bot after a year. So yeah, that would be another concern just that kind of came to mind. But yeah, good question. Yeah, okay. Another question from YouTube. Someone asked, some of it looks a little like Kibana visualizations. How does it compare to that in building visualizations? Yeah, that's a good question. I found it to be easier, I think mostly because I'm using straight SQL rather than using so Kibana, you have two options. You have the Kibana query language, and then you have those scene query language if you've used Kibana before. And I found, I mean, you're just using SQL, right? So it's a little bit easier to get into the data, I found at least, than using those. But if you're already familiar with Kibana query language, then fantastic. But for me, I found that to be a little bit more straightforward. I agree, though. I was thinking the same thing. It's similar in that you build up your charts, then you take those charts and you can kind of map them to a dashboard. Like if you were to create a new dashboard, it's pretty straightforward. So I found it to be a little bit easier to use the Kibana, at least. Yeah, at least for me. So like this one, you just you can throw them on there. It's kind of easy to use. You drag and drop. Not perfect, but decent. Like this, they'll just say, oh yeah, I guess that worked. But if, for example, I put one down here, this is a little bit tricky. You got to get right at the right spot. And then if I want to slide this up here, it says, oh, you can't because there's not enough space. So you have to drag one down here first. And I don't know. It's pretty straightforward. It's not perfect, but yeah, overall it was easy enough to do. So yeah.
Great. Thanks for your insight into this. Yeah, this is super cool. I think maybe I guess we can also add it to our list in that blog post I had written a while back. That superset you can integrate as well with Presto. But it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you again, Ryan, for giving this great talk. This is super cool to see. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today's talk. Again, reminder, next week is a holiday, so we will not be having Data Engineers Lunch, but we will still have Cassandra Lunch the following Thursday. And again, we've released our 9th free Apache Cassandra runbook. We'll drop that in the YouTube chat so you can get that there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, either now or in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notification bells so that you get notified every time we go live or whenever we post a new video. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see everyone in 2 weeks.